at Disney World, they have this color that they've created that they paint everything you're not supposed to look at. So like the electrical transformers, the trash cans, the fences, all the stuff that isn't like part of the Magic Kingdom, they paint this proprietary color, and that color is called Go Away Green. And it's specially formulated to just not attract your eyes in any way.
That and so much more coming right up on today's episode of The Pod Spotter. You're listening to yet another riveting conversation on the Pod Spotter, you lucky dog. Have you seen the number of podcasts out there? Don't even look, okay? Just meet me here every Monday, and I will have a brand new podcast for you to slip on and try out before you drive it off the lot. And hopefully you find it useful and entertaining. And if you do, tell people to subscribe to our pod. Word of mouth really helps. Visit thepodspotter.com and on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at thepodspotter for extra content and info on upcoming shows. Thanks, everybody. Then, you like what you Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's really a pleasure. I've been screening hundreds of podcasts. Andy exits. Woody's eyes come to life. The cowboy doll sits up, his expression changing from a smile to worry. Okay, everybody, coast is clear. The bedroom comes alive. Toys emerge from the toy box, the closet, the shelves, etc. in a flurry of activity. Potato Head, his body parts strewn across the floor. Ages 3 and up. It's on my box. Ages 3 and up. I'm not supposed to be babysitting Princess Drool. Ham, the piggy bank, flips one last penny into his coin slot. Potato Head walks up to him. All of his facial pieces are in the wrong slots. Hey, Ham, look, I'm a Picasso. Woody sits on the edge of his bed, observing all the activity. Hard to forget that opening scene from the original iconic motion picture Toy Story. Audiences all over the world were thrust back into a time in their lives when they affixed human characteristics upon their most prized childhood possessions. But humans have anthropomorphized the world around them long before you and I started talking to our G.I. Joes. As the ancient philosopher Xenophanes once concluded, anthropomorphic representations invariably reveal more about the human beings who make them than they reveal about the divine. The same can be said for the anthropomorphic representations found in the delightful podcast from Radiotopia, Everything is Alive, where host Ian Chillag sits down with some of the most interesting guests, from lamppost to chainsaw to can of soda, for a one-on-one with some of the most common inanimate objects that occupy our everyday. It is intimacy with the inert. Ian gives voice to the voiceless. The conversations are touching, provocative, hilarious. And as Xenophanes found, the audience is always gifted with a revelation about the humans who make them. Thank you for being here, Ian. Thank you for sharing the pod with us. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for that incredible intro to the show. It's amazing.
I'm sure I butchered Xenophanes. Is it Xenophanes? Xenophanes? Xenophanes. Yeah, I think it's Xenophanes.
I will say I've never heard Potato Head referred to without the Mr., but I guess like that's what his friends would like. Not everybody would always say Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
Anyway,
your podcast pedigree is kind of intimidating. You've worked with NPR's Fresh Air. You've worked on Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. You've worked on the show How to Do Everything with Mike Danforth. Maybe talking a little bit about the various jobs you've had in and around radio and how it brought you to Everything is Alive.
Well, I mean, I think all of those were great experiences that informed what I'm doing now. All of them, I learned how important it is to edit a lot of tape down to a small amount of tape That's probably the main thing.
Real tape too. You were working with the old school stuff.
It's true. Right? Yeah. We, on Fresh Air, we cut with a razor blade until 2007, 2008. Which I will tell you, one thing about that is we would always have razor blades around, and I still keep them because it is the best way to eat a Snickers bar, which is what everybody did at Fresh Air. If you just cut slices of a Snickers bar with a razor blade, you get this perfect, like, sedimentary layers of, peanut, nougat, and caramel.
Is that the same razor you're cutting tape with that you're then slicing?
Once the razor blade has gone out of service for the tape, then it becomes a Snickers blade.
Got it.
Yeah, and you don't go back. Yeah.
Here I've been grabbing the whole thing with my hand like a sucker. Should have been razor blade in my candy. I think razor blades and candy, though, that's kind of a bad combo, right? That's like every
classically bad thing.
Yeah, classically every like mid 90s parent's nightmare.
Yeah.
So razor blading tape at NPR took you to wait.
So while I was doing Fresh Air, I was also doing some reporting for shows like Marketplace and, kind of freelance stuff on the side. And then I went and worked for an NPR show called The Bryant Park Project, which was in New York and was short-lived, but great. And then I left NPR for a little while, and then started kind of working a little bit for Wait, and then moved out to Chicago and worked there full time, where I started How To with Mike. And then, started feeling like doing my own thing a few years ago. So I started extracting myself from NPR.
And it proved to be pretty successful. Everything Was Alive won the Miller Audio Prize in 2020. It was an Apple Best Podcast in 2018 and was part of AV Club's podcasts that defined a decade. Not bad accolades, Ian. How do you describe Everything Is Alive?
Well, I mean, I interview inanimate objects about the experiences we never hear about. But
is that ever weird to say? Is that does that come up at dinner parties? Oh, Ian, what do you do?
It's sometimes hard with, extended family.
Yeah.
Where
Aunt Lois.
That sounds interesting. Yeah. I mean, you've heard the show. It's a ridiculous premise treated with absolute seriousness.
Yeah.
So, I think that helps.
The closest one that we've done is probably our pilot episode, Brian Thompson's Whatever Happened to Pizza at McDonald's, where are you familiar with the pod?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's right in line. It's right in the same Netflix queue. It's just, taking these seemingly trivial things, incredibly serious, and also using, your years of NPR savvy to sort of play with the form of the interview process and of the interview show.
No, those tools, like the cliches or tools of NPR, they all work. And so, what might sound like a cliche when you're doing an actual piece of reporting actually helps you make a conversation with a toothbrush feel like a real thing.
How much of watching, or listening to Terry Gross interview humans has informed the conversations that you have on everything?
I think after our second episode, Fresh Air tweeted that the show was like Fresh Air, but for inanimate objects, I was like, okay, we've done 2 episodes and I feel like I've satisfied any goals I might have.
Does Terry listen? Is she a fan?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure she's heard at least a couple episodes. Yeah. It sounds silly, but I think like treating the guests with respect, whether it is Madeleine Albright or or a musician or a can of soda. I think that taking them seriously, the things of her that I'm sure I'm mimicking without realizing it, I'm sure actually helped the show feel like a real thing.
She does mostly remote interviews, isn't that right? Is it? And you like to be in the room with your objects. You're up close and personal with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. And sometimes we will have, so it'll be me and then the actor playing the object across the table. And then I sometimes find it helpful to have, if possible, the object there with us so we can kind of be seeing it.
Are you talking to the object then? Or are you talking, where's your eye contact?
I'm making eye contact with the one with actual eyes. Yeah. Mostly ignoring the object.
Is there anything from your childhood that you personified what is your earliest memory of talking to objects?
Oh God. I don't know. I don't know if I was a kid that did. I had imaginary friends,
Okay.
Fritchard and Himonen, who they were two men who lived together, and they had a dog named Booper, who I don't remember any of this, but my mom said I would talk a lot about how Booper had died, but we would talk about him in the past tense. So none of those are inanimate, but also none of them are real. So yeah, I guess
they had a whole life. They had chores. They had responsibilities. Your imaginary friends. They weren't just there to serve you. They had like tasks.
Yeah, no.
That's hysterical. All right, so it's in your DNA, talking to things, and a playful, active imagination. What was the impetus for this podcast?
I mean, it was, it was always kind of a way I joked around, imagining what like the last cannoli was feeling after all the others had been taken. And, it was just like a way to joke around with friends. There's probably something of like being at NPR and trying to book the best expert for a host. Like there's like a banana blight and you find the world's foremost expert on bananas, but if you want to find the most primary source, it's probably a banana who knows like the fear of waiting for the blight to come to his tree. But I don't know. I mean, one thing I've realized is I thought the idea came about a year before I actually put the show out. But I was recently looking at the Notes app on my phone. Do you like keep notes for yourself?
So when I do these, I'm like, as I'm listening, I'm just like, oh yeah, the notes. Yeah.
And I have like hundreds of them that it's like a dream later where you just go back and you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like this is oh, okay. And an airplane.
There's no context.
Yeah. But there was one from like 6 years ago where I just written something like, sometimes I feel sad for the vegetables in the fridge when the light goes out. And so I think I was like definitely starting to think like maybe there's a story to play with here, at least then, but forgot about it. Well, why don't we have you introduce yourself for us?
Well, what's your name?
My name is Ian.
My name is Ian. I'm a mirror.
I'm Louise. I'm a shirt.
I'm William, and I'm a pants.
You're just pants. You're not a pants.
Right. I'm pants, and you are shirt.
Ian, maybe talk us through the nuts and bolts of finding object and then finding voice. Are these actors auditioning for a specific thing in mind, or are you just picking friends?
So I keep a list of objects that I think might be interesting, which is just like, I'll just, whenever something comes to me, I write it down in a Google Doc. And then of those like 30 on that list, the ones that feel the most likely to be a possible episode, I'll start doing a little research on to find, because we always try and have like some real stories from the world of each object. And so once I've done that research and there is actually some substance that we might play with, then we reach out to actors. Our producer, Jennifer, does all of our casting. And she kind of keeps an eye on the improv and comedy scenes. And when we find somebody that seems like they might be right, we approach them and have a conversation where we throw 3 objects on the list at them. And, do you want to be a toilet or a pencil or the moon? And they're like, oh yeah, the moon. That makes sense. That speaks to me.
You have them do a lot of research, or is it all yours and you send them? Yeah.
No, actually, I ask people not to do any research. That's very important.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I find I have very specific ideas about what fact-wise is going to be interesting. And early on when we were piloting, a couple of the actors did their own research, and it was like, somebody's playing a sailboat and they're like, yeah, actually my sail is a X5 II, which was invented in 1964.
Got it.
That doesn't, yeah.
It became a Wikipedia sort of info dump as opposed to the emotional, which it
exactly.
is.
Yeah. So the actor's work is all about kind of finding the character and finding like what about the thingness of the thing would inform their personality. So like
can of soda. What did you have Lewis do with can of soda early on?
It's okay. We want you to be a generic soda because I think generic sodas are funny. And so I think together we were like, so what would be specific about a generic can of soda? Well, it would probably be on the shelf longer than Coca-Cola. So it would probably have a lot of time to think. So it would probably be kind of a self-styled philosopher type. And it would probably be very, very reflective. It would also, because of the carbonation inside of it, probably have like some angst and tension, kind of always. And then Louis Kornfeld, the actor, took those kind of basic character notes and developed it into something very real.
Truthfully, here's how I expect to go, assuming that I am consumed. I'm expecting it's going to happen in the middle of the night when I'm not waiting for it and someone's going to open the fridge and pull me out, and that'll be that. It would be nice to be poured into a nice big pint glass, Frosty mug would be a pretty good way to go. That'd be pleasant, I doubt that's going to happen, though. They don't reserve Frosty mugs for go-to colas. That's just another one of those facts of life.
Okay, what jumps out at you immediately is, yes, the tone that we kind of talked about earlier, but just like the raw intimacy of your podcast is so, I don't know, dreamlike. That's also the sound design, but it's just so personal that you feel like you're eavesdropping almost.
I think a lot of people who listen to the show have this experience of like feeling something while kind of forgetting what they're experiencing and feeling something, and then realizing, wait, I'm feeling something for a can of soda. What's wrong here? I mean, you are delicious.
Thank you. You're very gentle. This is a trippy feeling, I'm not going to lie. All right, my first report. Feeling very spacious inside right now. Feeling I got room to be.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling the warmth of the tummy. Very strange thing. I'm in two places at once. Spacious in my own body, but feeling warm and secure in your own tummy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
All of a sudden, I find myself thinking about my body. I'm thinking about my body, and I'm hoping that my body is a good place for you.
I think so. I don't mind telling you my first impression of the inside of your own tummy. You seem to be taking pretty good care of yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I almost went my whole life and never considered how the can of soda felt being consumed. I'm just very thankful that you've empowered these inanimate objects. But I've definitely had that experience after, binging this pod. And I'm wondering what that's done to your brain after, like, what your relationship with products is now after living with this podcast for 3 years. Is it sort of influence how you interact with the world around you?
We did an episode with a bar of soap, who is constantly getting smaller as she sits in the shower. And that one, for some reason, whenever I look at the ever diminishing bar of soap in our shower, I'm just like, I don't want to use it. I don't want to contribute to its demise. I don't know why that one has stuck with me more than the others, but
I think that I guess it made me sort of, and maybe this is why your podcast resonates with people. Like it makes you think about how you just interact and use the world around you a little bit more in a weird way. And it's interesting, for a time in our lives where we can literally have anything. If we just click a button, it'll arrive at my house. It's interesting to reflect on the relationship with those things.
And I think for a lot of people we've heard from, it's actually, of course, the things in your life don't talk. The people in your life talk, but the people in your life don't talk about everything, and they don't always talk. And so I think it makes people think about empathizing with the people in their lives and thinking about the other variables with people in their lives that those people aren't talking about. But I actually, in one of the episodes, I can't remember which one, but I talk about, my mom has this thing, she always says that, like, there's always a third variable. Like with any other person in the world, if somebody blows up at you, if somebody seems like weird and hard to know, like that person always has a third thing going on that you don't know about. And so like always consider the third variable. I don't know. I think that when you find yourself having this like weird, inappropriate empathy for an inanimate object, we hear from a lot of people that it makes them think about what empathy should they be having for the animate people in their lives.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's not my goal for the show, by the way. I just want it to be a fun show. That's just something that happens.
That's an interesting byproduct. Do you yourself have an improv background?
No.
Or background in performance? No, it's all just the art of the interview.
I have a lot of anxiety about these very talented improvisers and how I'm getting in their way as we make the show.
You're just as good. You go toe to toe with these people. It's wild. You mentioned you like to have a bit of info though in every. You do actual reporting in every every episode. It's not just sort of this high concept interview show. You have reporters out there digging into facts. And I think I was curious about how you decide which threads to follow, I guess. Does it come out of the conversation and then you're like, okay, we're talking about soda. While I was talking with soda, we touched on this. Let's investigate that. Or is that pre-planned?
Early on, we would pre-plan it because it would just production-wise, it was easier to kind of be working on the reporting while we were also preparing the interview with the object. But I found that because so much of our tapings are improvised, it was difficult to predict where we would want to go. So yeah, I record probably with each object 4 or 5 facts or stories from their world. And then we use 2. There's actually one in that can of cola episode that we never used, which is amazing, about the Soviet general in World War II who fell in love with Coca-Cola. He was working a lot with the Americans. He was like this hero to the Americans. And because he was working with them, he was constantly drinking Coca-Cola and loved it. And then when the war was over, he had to go back to the Soviet Union. He couldn't be seen drinking like the nectar of capitalism. So he petitioned the US government to petition Coca-Cola to make him a version that looked like vodka. And they made him white Coke, which came in a clear bottle. It was clear, and there was a red star on the cap. So he could drink Coca-Cola, but look like a good Soviet in public. Anyway, so we did that with Lewis. It's a fascinating fact, but it didn't do anything to contribute to Lewis's character, so we dumped it.
That one made the editing room floor, but the one about Radathor did not. And that's the one that's in the pilot. And that was when we learned that we as humans we actually manufactured a drink with traces of radiation in it. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you tracked down a guy on eBay through eBay that had a can of this. And this is part of that conversation.
So you put up the Radathor?
Radathor? Yeah.
Yeah. Is that for real?
Oh, yeah. Well, what happened was I was at a flea market and I found a set of about 20, 25 of these things.
Okay.
It was like a shipping crate or something. And so, yeah, I have sold a few of those.
Now, and is it a reproduction or is it an original bottle?
No, these are original. Yeah, original.
Did you check them with a Geiger counter?
I have not. I don't. I just assumed they wouldn't have any. There's no contents in them, obviously. But I haven't. No, I didn't check them with the Geiger counter. I suspected since they're from the 1920s, it would be done, gone.
I think maybe it wouldn't be gone. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know.
I'm listening to that conversation. I'm like, I hope this is an actor. Did people think that was an actor?
Yeah. People think that our humans are actors, but they are all real. I called that guy back a few weeks after the episode
I wanted
to check on him because he said he was going to go get checked out. He decided he didn't need to go get checked out, but he was fine. He was fine a few weeks later at least. Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, maybe next season we check up with that guy because it was troubling. He like hurries off the phone with you. When you're calling though, like the Met, and you're explaining who you are, and you're like, I'm having a conversation with a Sharpie. I need to talk to your top curator at the Met. Like, is there ever that moment of like, wait, I'm sorry, what? Like, how do you get past the sort of first line of crazies when you explain like what your show is?
Mostly people are just like, okay. Occasionally, like people want to know if they should play along, like if they should talk about, and I always ask them not to. But yeah, we've gone to great lengths to find these people. In the lamppost episode, there's a guy who, the lamppost, the famous lamppost that Gene Kelly swung around in Singing in the Rain. This guy had gotten it off of a film set and had it in his yard in LA. And there was a story in the LA Times from 1990 about this guy and how the lamppost had been stolen from his yard. And we couldn't find this guy for the life of us. There's just like, I don't know, there was nothing. And I found a real estate transaction, I think from 2003 with his name on it. Couldn't find any phone numbers. And so I just sent a FedEx to that address and was like, hey, I have this show where I talk to things. If you get this FedEx, please call me. I want to talk to you about your missing lamppost. And I tracked that FedEx and I saw it got to LA, and my wife and I were headed out the door, and I was like, he just got it. Can I just take my recording equipment in case he calls? She was like, he's not going to call. And we were on our way out the door and he called, and so I don't know. It's like a dumb amount of work to make this dumb show.
It's not a dumb, it's so fun. In that episode, Maeve the lamppost, we get to learn, you get to hear from Maeve and you get to hear the perspective of a lamppost in the street, but then you also get this wonderful story, this real life story of what happened to the actual lamp from Singing in the Rain. And it was the story. It was what's the story? It was on this guy. He worked for Paramount, right?
Yeah.
And you tell the story better than I can.
Yeah. I mean, I won't remember all the details, but basically he was an electrician. And they were moving one of the sound stages, and he figured out through some record which lamppost, there was just like a warehouse of these lampposts from Singing in the Rain. He figured out which one was the one. And as I remember, just asked his boss, hey, can I take this? And his boss was like, why do you want that? Yeah. And so he walked home, wired it up so it worked, and just put it up in his front yard. And then
legs. Got
some kids stole it.
Some stinking kids stole it, and you put out, you try to help at the end of your pod. You solicit some information and offer a meager reward. It still hasn't turned up though, I imagine. The Singing in the Rain lamppost. Ah, man. Yeah. Well, you're no stranger to silly games on podcasts with your wait, don't tell me pedigree, and we do love a game here. You'll notice the pod swag wall behind me. I'd like to get everything as alive on that wall. And the first of a couple games I might have prepared for you is a little weird one called Personification versus Anthropomorphism. I'm going to give you 3 phrases. You tell me if it's personification or if it's anthropomorphism. Because I struggled with those two,
Wow.
researching your pod. And in high school, I also struggled. But if you get it right, this Everything is Alive coaster, this inanimate coaster, will go on the pod wall behind us. Are you ready for personification versus anthropomorphism?
No, I'm not.
Number 1, another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go.
I'm gonna say personification.
That is correct. Personification is correct. Number 2, my computer hates me.
Anthropomorphization.
That is also personification, technically. My computer hates me is personification. And the final example, the Cat in the Hat.
I'm gonna say anthropomorphization.
That is anthropomorphism. Very confusing. Personification creates visual imagery, while anthropomorphism allows animals or objects to act like human. It's them physically acting like humans. But
wow. That was a very subtle game.
You got 2 out of 3 right. You're going up on the pod wall.
Oh,
congratulations.
We do have t-shirts, by the way. I don't know where you got the coaster, but there are t-shirts available.
We had this custom made. It was cheaper. Nice. This was in our budget. Yeah, it's a nice wooden coaster. Ian, I want to play a clip to see if our fans recognize this podcast crossover.
My name is Connor, and I'm a painting. I'm a portrait painting of President William Howard Taft. You see him from the waist up, and he's wearing a double-breasted suit, sort of leaning back, looking off to the left. Your left, but my right. I'm a good painting. Not a great painting, I'll admit to that. And I think that's fitting. He was a good president from what I gather, Probably not an all-timer, maybe, but I wouldn't pick another president to be.
That is, of course, the great Connor Ratliff, whose dead eyes are spying on you from behind the pod swag here on the wall. I've interviewed Connor. I can only imagine. I guess I have to ask you, how much material from the Taft episode was on the editing room floor? Because he is one of those rare humans that you could just say go to, and then it's like unbelievable.
He's truly amazing. Like there's no one like him.
No.
He's been on the show twice, which is rare. And then any kind of side gig when people want me to have an object talk, like it's just like call Connor, because he will make it funny and real. And
he must do research. When you hear him talk about, in this episode, Taft, like nothing, he just goes, right?
Well, we throw a little bit of research to them.
Okay.
But no, he like that, his brain just instantly finds a character.
Who is your most popular object? Do you have a most popular?
I think, I don't know. I mean, people love Maeve.
Yeah, she's great.
People love the Russian dolls.
In the Connor episode, we learned that painting was once an Olympic event. Was that the nugget that you took?
City planning was an Olympic event.
City
it was
planning?
Like the whole art Olympics. Yeah.
And why was painting taken out of the Olympics? Do you remember?
There was a story that whoever was the head of the Olympic Committee wanted it gone, but then in the course of that research, we learned that the head of the Olympic Committee had actually tried to compete in the art Olympics, maybe in painting, and had got an honorable mention, and then the next Olympics they were gone. So I think it was out of spite.
Some vengeful artist took it out. I liked I think there was an explanation also that was like, this is supposed to be for amateurs, and only masters are painter. Like if you're a painter, you're a master. That seemed like legit, but just funny that that's not in there anymore. You always have moments of real investigation, as we touched on, but then you also have these real insights into humanity. And I guess with Taft, do you remember a moment of sort of insight about humanity that he gave you, or anyone in general that you like, you would have never come to that realization had you not had a conversation with a thing?
There's one I think about a lot from the grain of sand episode where his whole thing is because he's a grain of sand, he's lived an almost infinite amount of time. And so he's been able to look at the world with a long view. And he talks about human boredom and says that boredom is essentially a symptom or an outcome of our anxiety about how little time we have. Because we know that our lives will end relatively quickly. It makes any time that feels like it doesn't matter, that makes us really anxious because we know we don't have that much time. And thinking about boredom as not just boredom, but as a response to our fear of our short lives, I think about that a lot.
I also had this really strange experience this week where I threw my back out last week. And so while I'm binging your pod, I'm laid up in bed and I can't move. I couldn't move for 2 days. And I'm listening to Chioki, is that who is the grain of sand? Yeah. Have that very conversation about sort of your relationship with time. As I'm laying in bed, and I don't know if you've had this experience of being like laid up like this, but there's zero, time goes out the window. Time is based on like how you feel. It's just based on like, is it sunny out? I have no idea. And it was just very dreamlike to be living with your pod and being sort of stuck inside my consciousness, just stuck inside my body that couldn't move. I felt inanimate. Yeah. I was an inanimate object. And he is having that conversation about time. And folks, I would direct you to Chioke's episode first. I think that's a great one to start with. That's a great episode overall. You also have, you talk to the husband and wife duo that do all the prompts for the subway in that one. Is that right?
The wife, yeah. The husband had passed away, but we talk a lot about him. Yeah.
And that is going to bring me to one more game that we like to play. How well do you know your pod? America's fastest growing game. Everybody loves it. Top of the charts. Kids are playing it. We're going to play it here today. How well do you know your pod? You're a bottom shelf pod right now. You only got 2 out of 3 right. So you're on the shelf, but you're bottom shelf. We've got to get that inanimate coaster up to the top shelf. You talked to the wife of the husband and wife duo in the Chioke Grain of Sand episode. What is her favorite phrase that she hears from her late husband when she now travels the subway?
Is it Mind the Gap?
Let's have a listen.
I suppose Mind the Gap is the iconic one. That's the one that everybody knows and everybody recognises. So I love the fact that he is that voice. But I ran the London Marathon in April because it was just something that I kind of wanted to do. I wanted to raise money for a cancer charity because, in Phil's memory. And I just felt it was a lovely omen because I was staying in a hotel the night before and hadn't heard Phil at all. And got to my hotel, I think it was Hyde Park, and the doors opened. Mind the gap, please. And I thought, yep, he's there. He's watching out for me. This is going to go well.
It's a great interview with you and her. You have a great conversation with her. I wanted to let that run a little bit. What does sand have to do with Mind the Gap? How did you find those? How did you find the connective tissue there?
It was a circuitous route. So there's a thing in the London Underground that if there's an emergency, like a fire, a track fire, that they need to alert everyone to, all the staffers to, but they don't want to panic the customers. They have a secret phrase that they say over the PA, and it's I think it's Inspector Sands. Will Inspector Sands report to Platform 2 or whatever? And so Chioke, being a grain of sand, mentions Inspector Sands, and then we just call Eleanor to talk about it. Because I can't remember if it is her husband who said the Inspector Sands message.
Yeah.
Because they gave him all the stern, informative
That was an
messages.
interesting fact. Yeah, the male voice had to be the stern stuff, and she got all the. That's wild. Well, you got 1 right out of 3 so far. Let's continue on with America's favorite game. How well do you know your pod? In Shannon the Towel, how much time does a person save each year by using a towel instead of air drying?
Oh God, we had that
hours of recording. Yeah,
the kid do the math. That kid, by the way, I've gone to him for years as a guest to do. Yeah, I had him calculate once the whether you got a better chocolate to peanut butter ratio in a traditional Reese cup or in the pumpkin shaped Reese cup that they put out at Halloween.
So Ian regularly has these math questions on his shows, on this show, and I guess on how everything works, or how to do everything.
How to do it. Yeah.
Where you, he called a like a mathlete, some kid in high school. It sounds like he's in high school, and you just ask him the toughest math questions.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, in this one, how much time does a person save annually?
I have no idea. I'm gonna say 14 days.
They save 1,881 minutes a year by using a bath towel. That's almost 30 hours that each person saves by drying it using a bath towel.
So a towel gives me a little more than a day a year back.
Yeah, it gives a lot of time back.
There you go, folks. Keep using towels. That's Shannon the bath towel episode. That is 1 out of 2. Let's see if you can get this last one correct, Ian, to make you a top shelf pod. In Anna the Elevator, one of the most heartbreaking episodes, Anna is given the choice between love and duty. What does she end up going with?
Just given the choice between love and duty. Can't remember what you're talking about. But I think she's gonna choose duty.
Let's have a listen.
Has there ever been anybody who's walked into you that you secretly hoped would never leave?
Yes. And it wasn't the first time that they rode me. It was more like after a while, after having this interaction, they grew on me in a way that I didn't expect. And I started to look forward to seeing them and to, I wished that I could push the button to the 13th floor myself so that they didn't have to worry about me. And after that, I said, you know what? I'm here to work. I'm not here to, I'm not here to fall in love.
It's beautiful. Poor Anna the Elevator. It's so funny. I'm listening to myself talk to you right now, and I'm lower than I've ever spoken on this podcast before. I'm mirroring the energy that you put out on your show. I'm source coding a little bit. Does this happen in your life? Do you do this to people? Is this strange, like Ian power that you have?
I always think I'm susceptible to adapting to. Maybe we're co-adapting.
I think we're co-adapting right now. We're finding a happy medium. I don't know. But it is definitely like a byproduct of listening to your podcast and the intimate nature of it that I feel very like I'm talking differently and I have no control over it. And I also kind of like it. And it's weird and scary and wonderful. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more from Ian. You wouldn't buy a car without driving it or go on a date or two before marrying someone, so why not join me every Monday and sample a pod or two before you go and make it all official and add it to your library? Commitment-free, no strings attached, just you, me, and the host of an exciting new podcast. If you haven't already, please leave a review on iTunes. Check out our fancy website at thepodspotter.com and tell fellow lovers of pods about what we're doing here. We're playing the field. We're listening to everything. We are polyamorous. You're welcome. I am a creative person that has, had creative ideas that, sometimes work and sometimes don't. And I understand that it's hard to catch lightning in a bottle. And I guess I'm wondering if you've ever thrown an object and we're not airing that episode. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. Your tree isn't a tree. It doesn't work. Like, does that happen?
Oh, so much.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We fail a lot.
Oh,
yeah.
What would you say? What's your percentage of failure rate?
I think, I've estimated this a few different times and I think it's getting better. Maybe we're 1 out of 5 now we fail. And then each episode, is 20 minutes and we're taping 90. So, I mean, I wouldn't consider those 70 minutes failure because you're finding the stuff, but yeah, probably 20% of episodes.
That's a really good success rate. I mean, for something like this, that is unscripted. That's just like, but you're still doing all the research. You're still sending, wow, my goodness. And some of that makes it into deleted scenes then? I guess a better question is, of the deleted scenes, are there any interesting factoids that you're like, man, I wish that episode worked?
There's an episode that we have never aired. I'll keep the object nameless, but a fact came out that at Disney World, they have this color that they've created, Disney World and Disneyland, that they paint everything you're not supposed to look at. So like the electrical transformers, the trash cans, the fences, all the stuff that isn't like part of the Magic Kingdom, they paint this proprietary color, and that color is called Go Away Green. And it's specially formulated to just not attract your eyes in any way. It's just like the least appealing thing in the world. Not offensive, but not magnetic.
And you say proprietary, they invented it? They own it?
Yeah, Disney, I don't know if they patented it, but Disney created Go Away Green.
Go Away Green. Probably about, I'm going to guess, cheese. It was probably cheese, which led you to
How
mouse,
did I give it away?
which led you to, no, we won't talk about it because that poor actor, didn't get to hear their episode.
I would just like to say, my belief is when they fail, it is 100% my fault and not the fault of the actors. It's
Yeah. It's just it's a tough thing too that you're doing. It's unscripted. You're just kind of out there talking to things. 2 of my all-time favorite pieces of information from your podcast that I learned was, 1, teeth once exploded. And
yeah, exploding teeth.
Teeth once exploded, and Hedgehog Hospital. Do you remember either of those factoids? And could you expand on either?
Yeah, I actually don't remember what made teeth explode. But the hedgehogs, there's a hedgehog hospital, Andrews Hedgehog Hospital in London, which during the taping of that episode, which is the IO balloon episode, we discovered this hedgehog hospital, and I got addicted to it. For I think a 2-pound donation, you could name a hedgehog, and they would send you a certificate, which you could print out with a picture of a hedgehog, and it would say like, "Hi, I'm Zach. I'm a hedgehog," and I probably spent $300 naming hedgehogs for everyone in my life. Yeah.
Is that that's got to be the most exciting thing about your job? Like, I enjoy doing this podcast because I have no idea what stories are going to enter my zeitgeist here from week to week. You've created a world in which anything is possible, and you can sort of investigate and learn about whatever kind of turns you on. Is that what is most appealing about the design of your show?
I like that. Certainly. I think, I mean, the most appealing thing is, like you were talking about Connor, and just a moment when one of the actors does something that just finds a thing that is totally surprising and hilarious or revelatory. Like just watching this frame we've create something that I couldn't have created on my own. That's the most thrilling thing.
I think I sometimes fantasize about what it would be like to be, I've won the gold medal, and I'm up there on the Olympics, on the medal stand, and they hang the medal around my frame, and Star Spangled Banner is playing, and I just picture I'm standing there, and everyone in the crowd is all other paintings, and everyone is standing or on stands perhaps, and they're all so proud of me. Everybody's there in the crowd. You got Mona Lisa is there, and melted clocks. The Dali is there. Just all the scream, but like screaming in support, like excited for me, like both hands on the face, and just like so thrilled that I've won the medal. I know it can't happen. I'm a realist. I'm a realistic painting, but it's hard not to think about that.
That was Connor Ratliff as a portrait of William Taft, imagining what it would be like to have won the Olympics. A moment that could only exist
It's a weird sentence.
in the weird sandbox that you've created for yourself, Ian. Do you solicit objects from your fans, from your audience? What do you have a most requested?
Trying to think. Stethoscope, which we did, was requested. Play-Doh is out there as a requested object. We'll get
to one
it.
You can't wait to get to? Is there one you're excited about? Anything to tease coming up?
I'm really excited to do a hole, just a hole in the ground, which is not a requested object, but it's something I've been thinking about. I just think just a hole that kind of doesn't know where its bottom is. I think that's going to be a fun conversation.
Do your fans, it's sort of the telltale sign of a successful pod when they've named themselves. We like coming up with names for fans here at the Pod Spotter that don't exist. Do your fans have names?
Not that I know of.
No. Oh, I gotta float some ideas by you. My goodness. They're really supposed to name themselves, but in case they need a few suggestions, we have idol worshippers, if you're into that.
Okay.
Inactive listeners. No. Okay, a little bit more inactive listeners. Chilagtites.
I like it a lot. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm just putting it out there, fans of the pod. You got to name yourselves. Do you have an induction into the Podcast Hall of Fame, a piece of audio, something from your show that you would like present when the inevitable Podcast Hall of Fame is built? As fans walk up to the kiosk of Everything is Alive and they hit the red button, what sound or moment would you like to be played?
I'm going to go with the ending of the Sharpie episode, which ends with a line by Tammy Sager, which just totally broke all of us, just destroyed the room. And it's like an amazing dumb joke that ends that episode, and I would nominate that. Yeah,
that was great. Would you mind writing something for me?
Sure.
And then put it in the drawer with us?
Yeah.
Ed, I love you till the day I die.
It is a good button. Check out Sharpie. It's the last 5 minutes of our podcast, Ian. And as you know, no one listens to the last 5 minutes of any podcast by now. They're all done doing whatever they were multitasking with. And so it is just you and I. And I use this time to talk about whatever, talk about the day, talk about your life, or get something off your chest, tell off a former lover or a former boss, anything. It's the last 5 minutes. No one's listening. I'll go first. As I mentioned, I was listening to this pod at a time that I was sort of, on the mend, on my back, not moving, not able to get up. And that first day of not being able to stand, that first crawl into the bedroom when I'm just sort of in there, I realized like an hour in, my wife is, taking care of our child and doing chores and keeping the house together. They went out on a walk at one point, and it occurred to me, I can't stand, but I have to use the bathroom. I have to do something. I don't have a bedpan or anything by my bed. And I'm listening to your podcast as I reach for the humidifier to uncap it and pee into. And I'm thinking about this, like, I'm thinking of like a future season when you're interviewing this poor humidifier and he has to recount this incident. It made me think about the object. It made me compassionate towards the object, is what I'm saying.
So where you peed into, was that where one would put water in?
Exactly. Yeah. It seemed natural. It seemed fine. Yeah.
So have you thrown it away, or can it get clean enough? Because you were then humidifying with.
Yeah. I think that's an instant toss for a normal person, but I'm like, hey, this was a pretty expensive humidifier. I can get it clean. So I'm going to try a couple washes and, we'll see how it goes. But I don't know if I start to notice I'm breathing funny, or I start to see any sort of deterioration in my skin, I'll chuck it. I
think you should.
Yeah. You think so? You think just instant toss? No. I can get it clean. I didn't save the receipt from Bed Bath & Beyond. So anything you'd like to discuss? Now's your time. No one is here.
I was warned about this and I thought about it. Oh. And I thought,
you were warned about it because you certainly didn't listen. You didn't hear it. No one listens.
I've heard it.
Oh, okay.
I've only listened to the last 5 minutes of your show. I was thinking how good it would be. Have you ever had anybody like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, since nobody's listening, in 2004, I murdered a man. And then it's just, and then your show just becomes this like true crime thing. And it's just about that from, well, then let me say to you that in 2004, I have an alibi for the entire year. Yeah.
Your reveal is a fake reveal. I like it.
Yeah. I'd love to be able to help you by having murdered someone 17 years ago, but I can't. Yeah.
Well, get on it. It's only the beginning of the afternoon. Ian, thank you for doing this. Thank you for sharing the pod. And thanks for being a part of the last 5 minutes here and indulging me. I'll take us out with my piece of audio that I'd like inducted into the podcast Hall of Fame for you. And it is from Maeve, the lamppost, whose episode I just loved, and her sentiment about, all you can really do is just take care of your little spot, your little patch.
See, that's the kind of person that I used to yearn to belong to if I was a little torch. Because she obviously respects and treasures light. Yes. And she probably brings one everywhere with her. If she has 11, she's got to be like bringing them all around in her adventures. So I'd love to go around. Where does she go? To meditation class. Oh, she's going to work in the office. And I would get in to see all those places and experience all that stuff with her. Mm-hmm. Whereas just being a lamppost, you're just static. But as I got older, I just grew to accept, look, you have this one patch and you just do the best you can with this one patch.
We're always looking for new suggestions on a fresh batch of pods. Tell me what you're listening to and what hosts you'd like to hear from via thepodspotter.com or on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram at thepodspotter. Thank you. This has been Zach Robinos. The Podspotter is created by the Price Brothers, produced by Oink Inc. Radio, associate producer Tori Adams, and is recorded and produced at Baker Sound in Philadelphia.